자, 그러면 3월 27일 월요일 모닝 헤드라인스 뉴스캐스터 조주연 선생님과 함께 시작합니다.
The ratio of firstborns among the babies born in Korea last year reached 62.7%, the highest since the country started compiling related data in 1981, surpassing the previous record of 56.8% set in 2021.
지난해 국내 출생아 중 첫째아 비중이 62.7%에 달해 종전 최고치였던 2021년에 56.8%를 넘어섰습니다. 이는 출산 순위별 통계 작성이 시작된 1981년 이후 가장 높은 수치입니다.
Kwon Do-hyung, the mastermind behind the ill-fated cryptocurrencies Terra USD and Luna, who was arrested in Montenegro on Thursday, is likely to appeal against a Montenegrin's court decision to extend his detention period for up to 30 days.
지난주 목요일 체포된 가상화폐 테라 루나 폭락 사태의 배후 인물 권도형 테라폼랩스 대표가 구금 기간을 최장 30일까지 연장하기로 한 몬테네그로 법원 결정에 항소할 것으로 보입니다.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced that Russia will station tactical nuclear weapons in neighboring Belarus, marking the first time since the mid-1990s that Moscow will have based such arms outside its borders.
블라디미르 푸틴 러시아 대통령이 국경을 맞대고 있는 동맹국 벨라루스에 전술 핵무기를 배치할 것이라고 밝혔습니다. 러시아가 해당 무기를 국외에 배치하는 것은 1990년대 중반 이후 처음입니다.
Gordon Moore, the Intel Corp co-founder who set the breakneck pace of progress in the digital age with a simple 1965 prediction of how quickly engineers would boost the capacity of computer chips, has died at the age of 94.
미국 반도체 기업 인텔의 공동 창립자 고든 무어가 94세를 일기로 세상을 떠났습니다. 그는 반도체의 직접 회로 성능이 급속도로 향상될 거라는 1965년에 명쾌한 예언으로 디지털 시대의 발전을 가속화한 인물입니다.
Korean figure skater Cha Jun-hwan finished with a new personal best, 296.03 points in the men's singles at the International Skating Union World Figure Skating Championships on Saturday, becoming the first Korean man to reach the podium at the annual competition.
지난 토요일에 열린 국제 빙상 경기 연맹 피겨스케이팅 세계 선수권 대회에서 차준환 선수가 296.03점으로 개인 최고 신기록을 세우며 남자 싱글 부문 은메달을 차지했습니다. 한국 남자 선수가 이 대회 시상대에 오른 건 이번이 처음입니다. And those are our headlines. Morning Headline Expressions. Let's have a look at the main expressions from today's headlines. The first one is to compile data or
Yes.
to compile related data.
So if you compile something or compile data, you are bringing together different data from different sources in order to put together a report, a list, or a book. So in our article, it mentioned the country started compiling related data in 1981 because it had different data from different sources. So it wanted to put it together in one location and one report.
Exactly. To compile data. 데이터를 모아가지고 작성하는 걸 얘기하죠. 그래서 compile data. 통계가 작성된 것을 말하고요. 여기선 관련된 자료가 이렇게 작성된 지 related data가 compile 된 지가 이제 지금 몇십 년이 지났는데 처음으로 새로 태어난 아기들의 첫째 아이 비중이 60% 이상이라고 합니다. 63% in fact. The next headline was the mastermind behind something.
That's right. If you're a mastermind, you are a brilliant, intelligent person with original ideas. It can be used both ways for a positive or a negative reason. But in this case, it was talking about a very negative, evil mastermind because it was talking about Kwon Do-hyung, the mastermind behind the ill-fated cryptocurrencies Terra USD and Luna.
Exactly. We could talk about a movie.
Yes.
You know, and with the movie comes the main characters and all the other stars of the show and the music and everything. But normally there is a director or a script writer. And they could be called the masterminds behind the movie.
That's right.
네, 무언가를 계획한 사람, 뒤에서 이렇게 계획한 사람인데요. 좋은 의미가 될 수도 있지만 또 이렇게 무언가의 배후에는 이런 인물이 있다라는 안 좋은 의미가 될 수도 있겠죠. Well, that's the case here. And for the next expression, station, but not the noun, the verb station.
That's right. So if you station something or someone, then you are assigning something or someone to a certain location.
Right.
You are putting in place that something or someone to a certain location, especially in military terms, military personnel. Russia will station tactical nuclear weapons in neighboring Belarus.
Yeah, exactly. station이라는 동사가요. 배치한다라는 의미가 있습니다. 여기서는 전술 무기가 벨라루스에 배치될 거다라는 얘기였죠. So Russia said it's not moving its, weapons to destroy and wipe out cities. No. It's just stationing tactical weapons to its ally, Belarus.
Right.
뭐 말은 그렇습니다. 자, 그
So they
다음에,
say.
So they say. 자, breakneck pace.
Breakneck pace is a very, very, very fast, extremely dangerously fast pace that is fast enough to actually break your neck.
무서워요. 그러니까 너무 빨라서 이렇게 목이 꺾일
Because
정도다라는
it can
표현인데.
give you whiplash.
맞아요. 네.
Yeah.
사실 운전하고 있을 때도 너무 빨리 뭐 급정거를 한다든지 그러면 이제 목이 뒤로 꺾이잖아요. 그래서 그런 거 생각하시면 될 것 같은데 아주 빠른 속도 breakneck pace. And breakneck is one word. You put those two together. Breakneck pace. And the last expression is a new personal best.
That's right. If you have a new personal-best, it means that it is your own personal best record. If you have, if you've been recording your own pace for running, and you have a personal best, then you've recorded your fastest. If you have a new personal best for your longest or your deepest diving, then you have the highest number.
Yeah, exactly.
For this one, it was about Cha Jun-hwan, which was the personal best for him, which was the highest number of 296.03 points.
So the personal best means the personal best score or the personal best record. But we can take out the word record or score and just say a new personal best. 그래서 이거 자체만으로도 개인 최고 기록이라는 의미가 되는 거죠. 새로운 개인 최고 기록을 세웠고 그로 인해서 은메달까지 받게 된 소식이었습니다. Once again, very proud.
Very proud and congratulations.
Absolutely. 자, 오늘 이렇게 헤드라인에서 나온 표현들 리뷰해봤고요. 모닝 헤드라인 익스프레션스는 오디오 어학당과 유튜브에서 무료로 다시 듣게 하실 수 있습니다. 자, 그러면 3월 28일 화요일 모닝 헤드라인스 뉴스캐스터 레이와 함께 시작합니다.
North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles on Monday. The latest in a flurry of weapons tests that Pyongyang says are in response to a major Seoul-Washington joint amphibious landing exercise.
한미 연합 상륙 훈련에 대응해 북한이 어제 단거리 탄도미사일 2발을 발사했습니다.
The head of the International Monetary Fund has warned that the global economy faces risks to its financial stability because of the turbulence in the banking sector.
국제통화기금 IMF 총재가 미국발 중소은행 파산의 여파로 세계 금융 안전성의 위험이 커졌다고 경고했습니다.
At least 25 people have been killed and dozens more injured in the U.S. after a massive storm ripped through Mississippi and Alabama, leveling hundreds of buildings and spawning at least one devastating tornado.
미국 남부 미시시피주를 강타한 토네이도로 최소 25명이 숨지고 주택 등의 시설이 대량 파괴됐습니다.
Honduras has formally severed diplomatic ties with Taiwan, ending a decades-long relationship and dealing a blow to the self-ruled island democracy in its struggle for recognition.
온두라스 정부가 하나의 중국을 인정한다며 수십 년간 지속되어 온 대만과 외교 관계를 공식 단절했습니다.
Archaeologists in Egypt have exhumed more than 2,000 ancient mummified sheep heads, along with the mummies of dogs, goats, cows, gazelles, and mongooses, left as offerings in a temple to the pharaoh Ramses II.
이집트 중부 아비도스에 있는 람세스 2세 신전에서 개, 야생 염소, 소, 가젤, 몽고스, 미라와 함께 양머리 2,000여 개가 발굴됐습니다. And those are our headlines. Morning headline expressions. Let's have a look at the main expressions. The first one is a flurry of something, a lot of something.
It means there's a lot of something happening in a relatively short period of time. You might hear a flurry of activity, a flurry of speculations. There were a flurry of news stories about this one topic, something like that. We were talking about a flurry of weapons tests conducted by North Korea.
That's right. 뭔가 갑자기 많아질 때 무언가가 폭주한다 이렇게 얘기할 수도 있을 것 같고요. 갑자기 많은 무언가, a flurry of something 이라고 표현을 할 수 있습니다. The next expression is to face a risk.
Yeah, to face risk. That means you have, there are some potential dangers ahead that you might have to deal with. Problems or dangers that you're going to have to face, meaning you're going to have to deal with them.
네, 직면하다가 face예요. face risk니까 어떤 위험을 직면하는 상황 속에 있다. 세계 경제가 지금 그러하다라고 IMF에서 얘기를 했죠. And it's because of the banking sector.
Right, but anytime we
shaking.
we make any investments,
Yeah.
you can say we face risk because there's
You
the
do,
risk,
yeah.
the problem, the
Of
danger is
course.
that you could lose it. You might not, but
그렇죠.
it's there. The risk is there.
위험 부담이 항상 있으니까 어느 정도의 위험을 무릅쓴다라는 의미로도 you have to face some risk라고 할 수 있겠네요.
And that's why when if you go to a financial advisor, they figure out your risk level. Are you a risk taker?
Sure.
Or are you risk neutral? Or are you risk averse?
risk averse, that means you don't like to take risks.
No. You want to be in the safest things
yeah.
possible.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe for someone who is risk averse, investing in stocks might not be a good idea. Just putting money in the bank,
or
in a savings account
government
or something.
bonds, which
safer, relatively.
Yes.
자, 그 다음으로는요, to level something, to level buildings.
Yeah, to flatten them. Destroy them basically completely. If a building is standing up and then it's leveled or flattened, it's reduced to rubble.
level이라는 게 이렇게 우리가 level 1, level 2 할 때 쓰기도 하지만 동사로는요. 그냥 납작하게 만들어버린다. 이런 뜻이 있습니다. 그래서 여기서는요. 건물들을 무너뜨렸다라는 의미, 건물이 초토화가 됐다라는 뜻으로 썼죠. This tornado has leveled hundreds of buildings.
Right. You'll also see level when you're talking about sports.
Oh.
You know, when you're reporting a story, one team, they leveled the score. So if the score was 1-0, 1-0, the other team scores, they level the score. So they make it basically even. You can think of level that way. Level is when things are flat.
So a team was losing,
Yep.
and then they got a point.
Yep.
So now they're equal.
Right.
They have leveled the score.
Exactly.
그렇군요. 좀 동점이 됐을 때도 level했다 이렇게 얘기를 한답니다. 자, 그다음에 to deal a blow.
To deal a blow to something, to negatively affect. A lot of times we'll see this. We're talking about some kind of plan, for example. You're planning to do something, but then something bad happens and it deals a blow to your plan. Your plan isn't completely dead, but it's going to be more difficult to carry it out.
Yeah. Deal a blow. 덩어리 표현이에요. 이걸 하나로 외우시면 참 좋은데요. 타격을 입히다 라는 의미가 되겠습니다. 그래서 I dealt a blow 이렇게 얘기할 수 있겠죠. 그럼 내가 타격을 입었다가 되는 겁니다. In this case, severing ties could deal a blow to a certain country. It could have a negative impact to a certain degree.
Exactly.
The final expression is offerings.
Offerings, gifts.
Yeah.
When you give something to somebody, you offer it to them.
그죠. 제물의 의미로 여기선 쓰였어요. 그러니까 신전 같은 데서 제사를 지낼 때 이렇게 바치는 것들 그런 의미의 제물로 여기서 쓰였는데 그 라메시스 II의 무덤 안에 보니까 양머리가 아까 몇 개였죠? 수천 개였던 것 같아요. 굉장히 많은 이렇게 미라 형태로 된 동물들이 발견이 됐는데 다 제물로 이렇게 바쳐진 동물들인 것 같다라는 얘기가 나왔습니다. Alright, well that's going to do it for our headline expressions. 오디오 어학당과 유튜브에서 Morning Headline Expressions 무료로 다시 듣기 하실 수 있습니다. 3월 29일 수요일 Morning Headlines 뉴스캐스터 레이와 함께 시작합니다.
The Korea Institute of Curriculum and Evaluation has announced that this year's university entrance exam, set to take place on November 16th, will maintain last year's format, with 50% of the questions based on lectures and materials from EBS.
한국교육과정평가원에서 오는 11월 16일에 실시되는 2024학년도 수학능력시험 기본 시행계획을 발표했습니다. 지난해에 이어 올해도 문이과 통합형으로 출제되며 EBS 교재 연계율 또한 지난해와 동일한 수준인 50%를 유지하기로 했습니다.
The Japanese government has approved new elementary school textbooks that contain severe attempts to distort historical facts, such as watering down the coercive nature of its wartime wrongdoings and intensifying its sovereignty claim to Korea's easternmost island of Dokdo.
일본이 내년도부터 사용할 초등학교 교과서에서 일제감정기 조선인 징병 관련 문제에서의 강제성을 희석하고 한국 땅인 독도에 대해 영유권 주장을 강화한 것으로 확인됐습니다.
The Korea International Trade Association has revealed that Korean exports to China have dropped to 19.8%, warning that Korea's trade deficit could expand to $41 billion by the end of the year in the worst-case scenario.
국내 전체 수출 가운데 중국으로의 수출이 차지하는 비중이 대폭 감소해 19.8%를 기록했습니다. 한국무역협회는 수출 부진 흐름이 올해 말까지 이어질 경우 무역 적자가 최대 410억 달러까지 늘어날 수 있다고 전망했습니다.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced a pause on his controversial judicial reforms, succumbing to growing pressure from within his own coalition, a day after one of the biggest protests in Israel's history.
베냐민 네타야후 이스라엘 총리가 시민들의 대규모 반대 시위에 결국 무릎을 꿇고 여권에서 추진해온 사법 정비 입법 절차를 연기하기로 했다고 밝혔습니다.
The International Federation of the Phonographic Industry has revealed that 8 of the top 10 best-selling albums worldwide last year were K-pop albums, with BTS in particular charting in the top 5 for the third consecutive year.
국제음반산업협회가 발표한 지난해 전 세계에서 가장 많이 팔린 앨범 10개 가운데 8개를 K-pop 스타들이 모두 휩쓸었습니다. 특히 방탄소년단은 이 차트에서 3년 연속 톱 5를 기록했습니다. And those are our headlines. Morning Headline Expressions. Now, Ray, if someone were to distort the facts, what would they be doing?
They would be changing them so people cannot understand the truth. And it has this connotation of being intentional as well.
Yeah.
So if you're distorting historical facts, you are changing them so people understand history incorrectly.
Yeah, exactly. There is that malicious intent, we could say.
for sure. Because why else would you do it?
distorting은 왜곡한다라는 의미가 있습니다. 그래서 역사적인 사실을 왜곡한다. Distort historical facts. The next expression to look at is set to take place.
Right. So if something is set to take place on a certain date, that means the plan is for it to happen on that date. So when anything take place just means to happen. And if something is set to happen,
Yeah.
that's probably when it's going to happen because that's the plan.
Set to do something. The plan is to do something. You know what, Ray? I was actually set to explain set to take place first.
Okay.
But I forgot, and I explained distorting historical facts first.
That happens
So that didn't
sometimes.
go according to plan.
That's okay. You didn't
Set to.
distort any of your explanations. They were all factually correct.
네, set to do something이라는 거는 뭐뭐 할 계획이 있다, 아니면 뭐뭐 할 예정이다라는 의미예요. 원래는 제가 요거부터 설명할 예정이었어요. 그런데 어쩌다 보니까 순서를 반대로 해버렸네요. 죄송합니다. Set to take place는 언제 치러질 예정이다라는 뜻이고요. 그리고 이제 수능 같은 경우 이제 11월 16일에 치러집니다. 정해졌죠. 그래서 그런 의미가 되겠어요. To take place, to happen.
To happen, exactly.
Right.
And you can ask that, right, in the past tense, like, when did that take place? You can also do, this is good. When did something take place?
Oh.
Or where? You could do both, right? Where did that take place? When did that happen? When did that take place?
Where did that hockey game take place?
Yes.
In Canada. Or when did it take place?
Thursday.
Last week.
Last week, exactly.
이렇게. 언제 일어난 일인가요? 어디서 일어난 일인가요? When did it take place? Where did it take place? 다 할 수 있겠네요. How?
I guess even why.
Why?
Yeah,
다
exactly.
가능하네요. 좋습니다.
Just means happen.
There you go. 자, 세 번째 표현은요. In the worst case scenario입니다.
Scenario you can think of as a situation. And we always use this when you're talking about the future. Something that you're looking at a situation.
Yeah.
Right? In the worst case scenario, you're saying if everything goes terrible and it can't get any worse. Like this would be the worst situation we'd have to deal with. A lot of times when you talk about this, what really ends up happening is not quite as bad as that.
Yeah.
Right? And then you can also flip it and talk about the best case scenario. Right? In the best case scenario, this will happen. It might not, but if it's something still good can happen, it just might not be the best.
Exactly. A scenario is basically something that could happen, as we know.
Right.
So in this case, we're talking about the worst possible situation that could take place.
When we talk about, exactly.
Yeah.
When we talk about the Korea's trade deficit.
그래요. 최악의 시나리오는 이러이러하다라고 할 때 in the worst case scenario라고 하면 되겠습니다. 자, 그 다음에 succumbing to pressure.
You succumb to, and we talk about succumbing a lot when it talks about an illness. Somebody is sick and then they die. They've succumbed to that illness.
I see.
It's the idea of giving into it, being taken by it when it comes to an illness. If you succumb to pressure, it means so many different people are trying to make you do something, and then you just, okay, fine. And you just do it, right? Like I succumb to my wife's demands all the time for things, right? Okay. I give in, whatever you want.
I succumb to your pressure.
Yes.
이건가요?
Succumb to demands, you could also say.
But I mean, you wouldn't say I succumb to your demands.
No,
but,
you would
but
just
that's the situation.
do it.
네,
Yeah.
그렇죠.
Do what they want.
Succumb to something, S-U-C-C-U-M-B 이렇게 쓰는데요. 굴복한다는 의미가 있어요. 그래서 succumb to pressure, 어떤 압력에 굴복하는 거. Succumb to an illness라는 거는 정말 심각한 질병에 걸렸는데 최악의 경우 이 질병으로 인해서 이제 사망을 한다든지 이럴 때 this person unfortunately succumbed to the illness. 이렇게 얘기할 수 있습니다.
Sounds very newsy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is very formal.
You probably said that on the news before when you were reading about stories.
I guess you wouldn't say it to a friend though, right? Or could you?
I guess you could.
could?
Depends.
Oh,
like it's, you know, it's not like it's wrong, right?
Sure. It is, though, a little bit formal.
Formal. But some people speak with higher level vocabulary in general, so.
Yeah, absolutely. 자, 그래요. 그래서 어떤 압력에 못 이겨, 뭐뭐뭐 했다라는 의미로 여기선 썼습니다. 자, 마지막으로 to chart.
In this case, when you use it, like when you're talking about to chart, we're talking about music.
Yeah.
We're talking about albums or songs that
Got in the charts.
That in the music charts,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And it's usually you're talking about Billboard chart or something like that.
차트 안에 들다라는 의미로 to chart라고 얘기를 할 수 있습니다. 자, 이렇게 헤드라인에서 나온 표현들 리뷰 해봤고요. 모닝 헤드라인 expressions는 오디오 어학당과 유튜브에서 무료로 다시 듣기 하실 수 있습니다. 자, 그러면 3월 30일 목요일 모닝 헤드라인스 뉴스캐스터 레이와 함께 시작합니다.
The amount of daily payments made with cards in Korea grew about 13% last year as eased COVID-19 related restrictions boosted consumption, according to data compiled by the central bank.
한국은행에 따르면 지난해 국내 지급카드의 하루 평균 이용액이 1년 전보다 약 13% 늘어난 것으로 집계됐습니다. 이는 코로나19 관련 방역 조치들이 완화되면서 민간 소비가 회복된 덕분으로 보입니다.
Countries in the European Union have approved a landmark law that will ensure all new cars sold from 2035 must have zero emissions after Germany called for an exemption for cars running on e-fuels.
유럽연합 회원국들이 2035년부터 역내에서 판매되는 모든 신규 자동차의 이산화탄소 배출을 전면 금지하는 획기적인 법안에 최종 합의했습니다. 여기에는 합성연료 사용 차량은 예외로 해달라는 독일 측 입장도 반영된 것으로 알려졌습니다.
The UK has announced up to £10 million in funding to support a new UK-Polish partnership, which will deliver temporary shelters, energy supplies, and assistance for Ukrainians displaced by Russian attacks.
러시아 침공으로 발생한 우크라이나 난민에게 임시 난민촌과 전기 및 기타 지원을 제공하기 위해 영국과 폴란드가 공동으로 나선 가운데 영국이 이 작업을 위해 1,000만 파운드, 우리 돈으로 약 160억 원에 달하는 자금을 투입하기로 했습니다.
The International Olympic Committee has recommended that individual athletes from Russia and Belarus should be allowed to return to competition under a neutral status, as long as they have no military links. But it held off on deciding whether they can compete at next year's Summer Games in Paris.
국제올림픽위원회 IOC는 러시아와 벨라루스 선수들이 자국 군대와 연관되지 않은 이상 개인 자격으로 중립국 소속으로 국제대회에 참가할 수 있도록 하는 가이드라인을 발표했습니다. 하지만 이들의 파리올림픽 출전 여부에 대해서는 유보하는 태도를 보였습니다.
A study has found that ChatGPT-like AI systems will impact 80% of jobs in the US, with personal financial advisors and brokers, insurers, and data processors at the top of the list.
챗 GPT와 같은 생성형 인공지능이 미국 내 직업의 80%에 영향을 미칠 것이라는 연구 결과가 나온 가운데 개인 금융 자문인과 중개인, 보험업자, 정보처리기사 등이 그중 가장 큰 영향을 받을 것으로 나타났습니다. And those are our headlines. Morning Headline Expressions. From the headlines today, we looked at boosting consumption.
Boost anything means to increase it. Consumption means buying things. Consumers.
Yeah.
Consumers out there spending money.
Exactly.
And that is what drives the economy.
Sometimes we can talk about consuming food.
Sure.
But in this case, of course, it's money.
Right, you could talk about you want to boost your consumption of vegetables, for example.
Yeah, exactly. 음식량을 우리가 섭취하는 것도 이제 consume 뭐뭐뭐라고 할 수도 있는데요. 여기서는 돈 쓰는 거죠. Boost consumption, 소비를 늘린다. The second expression was have zero emissions.
Zero emissions. These vehicles will not release any greenhouse gases, harmful greenhouse gases into the atmosphere.
Yeah, zero emissions of harmful gases. 그런 유해한 이산화탄소라든지 이런 것들의 배출을 zero로 만들겠다라는 의미인데요. Have zero emissions. 이렇게 그냥 축약해서 얘기합니다. 이것저것 다 붙여가지고 zero emissions of harmful carbon 이렇게 하지
Right.
않고 그냥 zero emissions.
I wonder if they'll be able to ever make cows that have zero emissions too. I don't know if that'll be possible. With DNA, I don't know. You never know, right?
Yeah, well, they'll have to stop burping and farting in
Right,
that case.
yeah.
Not easy.
No.
Okay. The next one is temporary shelters.
Well, a shelter is a roof over your head,
Yeah.
or it protects you from the elements, from the outdoor elements. And anything that is temporary doesn't last for very long. It only lasts for a short period of time.
Yeah, exactly.
You've ever heard of like some people's jobs, they're called a temp, meaning they're only going to be there temporary.
그렇죠. 뭐 임시 계약직이라든지 아니면 임시로 와서 일하는 사람을 이렇게 temp라고 부르기도 합니다. 줄인 거죠. Temporary shelter는 임시로 이제 머리 위에 지붕을 올려놓는 형태의 머무를 수 있는 곳이 될 텐데요. 뭐 때에 따라서 한번 다르게 해석할 수 있겠지만 여기서는 임시 난민촌의 의미가 있습니다. And to hold something off.
I'm going to hold off on explaining this for a
아니,
minute
그래요?
here.
설명을 좀 보류하실 거예요?
You postpone something, you wait. And you can like people use this quite casually too, right? Like you might be talking about, with your family purchasing something, maybe buying a car or going on a vacation, and you're just not sure if you should spend the money right now. You know what? Let's hold off on this for a little while.
Let's hold off on this. 잠시 좀 미룹시다 라는 뜻으로 let's hold off on this 라고 얘기할 수 있습니다. The IOC is held off on deciding whether or not, certain athletes can compete in next year's Olympics. And the last one is impact.
If you make an impact or if something impacts you, it affects you.
그렇죠. Affect, 영향을 준다라는 의미로 impact, 누구라고 얘기할 수 있습니다. 이렇게 오늘 헤드라인에서 나온 표현들 리뷰해봤고요. 모닝 헤드라인 익스프레션스는 오디오 어학당과 유튜브에서 무료로 다시 듣기 하실 수 있습니다. 자, 그러면 3월의 마지막 날입니다. 3월 31일 금요일 모닝 헤드라인스 뉴스캐스터 폴과 함께 시작합니다.
The Korean government is likely to reduce the mandatory COVID-19 isolation period to 5 days from the current 7, starting in early May, as authorities are considering downgrading the virus to a lower infection level.
중앙방역대책본부는 5월 초에 코로나19 위기 대응 단계 하향 여부를 결정할 예정이라고 밝혔습니다. 대응 단계가 하향되면 의무 격리 기간은 7일에서 5일로 단축됩니다.
2 out of 5 families in Ukraine are in extreme need of food, water, and basic necessities, according to Save the Children, as the country is now experiencing unprecedented rates of displacement, inflation, and unemployment 1 year into full-scale war.
지난 1년간의 전면전으로 인플레이션과 실업률이 전례 없이 높아지고 있는 가운데 우크라이나의 5가구 중 2가구는 기초 생필품 구입이 어려운 상황이라고 국제 아동 권리 비정부 기구 Save the Children이 전했습니다.
Russia has clarified that Moscow will continue to notify Washington of any ballistic missile launches, despite a statement a day earlier that all forms of notifications were terminated as a result of President Putin suspending the New START nuclear non-proliferation agreement.
러시아가 지난달 신전략 무기 감축 조약, 이른바 New START 참여 중단을 선언한 데 이어 미국의 핵무기 관련 정보를 제공하지 않기로 발표한 지 하루 만에 결정을 번복했습니다.
More than 1,000 technology leaders and researchers, including Elon Musk, have urged a moratorium on the development of the most powerful artificial intelligence systems, warning in an open letter that AI tools present profound risks to society and humanity.
일론 머스크를 포함한 세계적인 인공지능 전문가, 정보기술업계 경영자 등 1,000여 명이 AI가 인류에 심각한 위험성을 미칠 수 있다며 최첨단 AI 시스템 개발을 일시 중단할 것을 촉구했습니다.
Bangladesh has announced a ban on single-use plastics in the Sundarbans mangrove forest, the world's largest mangrove forest, due to the significant damage caused by tourists dropping plastic rubbish in the area.
방글라데시가 순다르반스 지역에 위치한 세계 최대 맹그로브 숲 보호를 위해 해당 지역에서의 일회용 플라스틱 사용을 금지한다고 밝혔습니다. And those are our headlines. Morning headline expressions. So the first expression to look at is mandatory isolation period.
Yes, period meaning period of time, isolation meaning being alone, and mandatory means you have to do it. It's not voluntary, it's mandatory. And you talked about compulsory before. I was thinking about the difference between mandatory and compulsory. Compulsory, you're forced to do it. Whereas
That's
mandatory,
true.
they're saying you must do it.
아, 그러네요. compulsory 그러면은 정말 강제성이 많이 느껴지죠.
네.
반드시 해야 된다. 그래서 제가 생각나는 문장은 compulsory subscription to the army.
Yes, or a compulsory fine.
compulsory fine.
Penalty, for example.
compulsory fine. 반드시 이 벌금을 내야 된다라고 할 때 붙는 단어라고 볼 수
Yeah,
있겠네요.
we wouldn't use mandatory for fine. We would use compulsory.
그러네요. mandatory는 의무적으로 뭐뭐뭐 해야 된다 이고요. compulsory 그러면 좀 반드시 해야 된다. 이걸 하지 않으면 뭐 어떤 뭐 벌금이 더 주어질 수 있고 그런 거죠. compulsory fine 같은 거 생각하면 되겠고 mandatory는 의무라는 얘기인데요. 살짝 이렇게 뉘앙스 차이가 있다는 거. isolation period는 격리 기간이 되겠습니다. The next expression is in extreme need of something.
When you really, really need something urgently. This is not to be used casually. This is in an emergency, in a life or death situation, when you're in danger or when you're starving or when you have no water or basic necessities. You're in extreme need, urgent need of it.
Exactly. An extreme thing actually means, it's right at the end of a spectrum, right?
Exactly, yes. So if we talk about being extremely excited, it's very positive, but that means we're very, very, very excited. Or
Yeah.
extremely sad, meaning we're very, very, very sad.
That's right. extreme하다는 것은 좀 극단적이라는 의미가 있을 수 있어요. 내지는 뭐 extremely happy 그러면 몹시 기쁘다 이런 의미가 되는데 여기서는 extreme need입니다.
네.
정말 절실히 뭐뭐를 필요로 하는 구하고 싶어도 구하지 못하는 상황이 우크라이나에서 벌어지고 있다. 였고요. 그다음에 다음 표현은 suspend participation.
Yes, well,
no, actually.
we
아니네요.
looked at nuclear non-proliferation agreement. I think that's a
Sorry.
harder term than suspend participation. Here, we talked about non-proliferation, which means the non-spreading of something. To proliferate means to spread, so non-proliferation means a lack of spreading. And it's what the US and Russia agreed to stop each other from making more and more nuclear warheads.
네. Nuclear Non-Proliferation Agreement였습니다. 그러니까 Non-Proliferation이라는 것은 확산하지 않는다, 즉 확산 방지의 의미로 여기서는 쓴 거죠. 그래서 Nuclear Non-Proliferation Agreement는 핵 확산을 방지하기 위한 그런 이제 조약을 우리가 맺은 거고요. 실제로 New START라고 하는 그런 조약을 맺었고 그것에 따라서 움직여야 되는데 러시아가 우리는 미국에다가 정보를 제공하지 않겠다라고 했다가 그건 아니고 관련된 내용은 제공은 하겠다라고 또 번복을 하기도 했어요. 그 내용이 들어 있습니다. 그리고 보통 우리가 말하는 핵 확산 방지 조약 NPT도 마찬가지가 되겠습니다. Alright, the next one, moratorium.
Stop talking about it, Sue. Stop it. No more talking about moratorium for at
Okay.
least 6 months.
The stage is yours.
Yeah, no, it's when we postpone something, when we stop people from doing something or companies from doing something for a period of time. In this case, we're talking about telling developers we need to pause when it comes to developing AI, and then we need to make agreements before we continue. So, and as we said before, this term moratorium, you're not going to use it in your casual chat with your friend. You're going to see it in legal documents, in the news, or in a government press release.
Exactly. moratorium, 유예라고 볼 수 있어요. 그래서 moratorium on the development of AI는 좀 의역을 할 필요가 있는데 AI 개발을 조금 일시 중단 아니면 진짜 뭐 유예하자라는 느낌으로 이해하시면 되겠습니다. 자, 그다음에 마지막은요. 일회용 플라스틱입니다.
Single-use plastics, one time and one time only. Those things that you buy at the convenience store or the supermarket, a plate or a cup or a bottle that you're going to throw away immediately after using.
일회용 single-use plastics. 그러면은 일회용 플라스틱 제품이라는 단어가 됩니다. 자, 오늘 헤드라인에서 이렇게 표현 살펴봤고요. 모닝 헤드라인 expressions는 오디오 어학당과 유튜브에서 무료로 다시 듣기 하실 수 있습니다.